Hey guys, welcome back to Green Chat. My name is Cleeze, and today we're going to be jumping into the comments of the previous video I put out, the Pantheon tank class reveals. Some of you guys' comments and corrections that you made to me. I wanted to go over those real quick, so it's kind of a follow-up to last week's video. So hey guys, let's get started. Hey guys, hope you're all doing well. This is Green Chat, a place where you guys can ask me questions and I give you my opinion to hopefully formulate your own on the upcoming MMO Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. Today, we're going to be going over the questions from last week, or not questions, but there were some statements in the tank video that I put out, and that, we're going to keep, we're going to round out that tank business. We're going to round it out before we move on. I feel like it's appropriate. And you know why it's nice and fresh in our heads. Also on the docket in the future, just so you guys are, kind of apprised, I still have that Rage College business on the line, which I'm pretty excited about, pretty excited to talk about. But I'm going to do that when there's no Green Chat stuff going on. And right now, Green Chat just boomed back into life. I got tons of questions from you guys to still catch up with, and all this tank business to get through. Furthermore, I got some messages from MR and some other guys, but MR sent me an idea, aka Michael. Hope you don't mind sharing your name, Michael. It's a great name, Michael. I like that name. Gave me the idea to kind of wander down EQ memory lane and share some examples of what it might have been like, or what it was like to play EQ, and really what makes that such a magical place to be in, that kind of MMO, and why some of the things like corpse runs, travel, having really hard bosses that takes 500 people to kill. That wasn't 500 people, but these things like that, or things like that. What makes them important to a game, especially for somebody who hasn't experienced it. I thought that was a great idea. So without further ado, let's get started on today's episode of Green Chat. All right, so let's start this. Let's start it. So Kyle Bonjour sent me a comment, and he said, you should read through and studied them before making this video. RIP. He's referring to the tanks. So RIP is an RIP, rest in peace, man. So you know what? He was kind of right. I breezed through it. I mostly focused on like the premise or the concepts of the tanks, not so much the actual abilities when I was reviewing them before I made the video. However, it was like Father's Day weekend. There was like a carnival in town. This is no excuses. This is no excuses. But what I decided to do was at last minute change what I was going to talk about, basically. And wasn't entirely prepared because, I was like, content over, or excuse me, like the freshness of what I was going on with, or like how prepared I was for the content, or is the content more powerful than my preparedness? And I decided to, as some developers do, just kind of release that patch without it being ready at all. However, I mean, I did review the, like I said, the way each class works, the Dire Lord, the Paladin, and the Warrior. And I felt confident speaking in the sense of, them versus that, or what's going to be the strengths and weaknesses. However, some of their abilities are totally fudged up on, but I would attribute that to maybe, my super tiredness. However, I will make a promise in the future. If I screw up, it's just because I'm an idiot. So, not because I'm tired and trying to release stupid comments, or not comments, but content. See, I'm already kind of talking like a gibbery bat, but whatever, whatever. I apologize for anybody who's like, what the heck? And hey, Kyle, or Sile, that name, man, C-Y-L-E, that's such a unique, but hey, thanks for the comment, man, and let's move on to the next one. Let's move on. All right, so this one's a little bit more of actually information that is important to one of the classes where I totally fudged the statement. Fudged it hard. Eric Rhodes, sorry for the clicking, guys, sorry. Eric Rhodes had said, bonus hate, not haste, on DL stance, below stance. Let me read that to you guys this time to make it a little bit better and make it more sensible. So one of the blood states, one of the 3 blood states of the Dire Lord is Nightmare Blood. The damage you deal afflicts your enemy with palpable horror, converting X% of your damage into bonus hate. I said haste. I've got this issue where I read things and what I want it to be becomes it. However, what I think happened there was it's been ingrained. I mean, I've been playing WoW for the past 10 years, and we all know about, what are those stupid ding-dongs? Blood Knights? Yeah. Okay, and I just did it again. It's Death Knight. It's Death Knight. Blood is the spec. Blood is the spec for tanking, so it's Death Knight, not Blood Knights. And they get that speed thing. Anyways, yeah, I was totally thinking of Blood Knights, and boom, totally screwed up. However, I really hope they're called Blood Knights, because now I'm making myself look at ding-dong. But that's the theme of these statements, is these people were correcting me. And hey, I really appreciate it. Kyle Bonjour, Eric Rhodes. That's awesome. So yeah, it's bonus hate, not bonus haste to the DL stance, which is actually, in my opinion, much better if they're a tank. Because, hey, you know, if they need to be like, yo, let's ramp it up, and then they can jump out of Nightmare Blood into something else. They have Essence Leech and Torrential Veins. If they need to switch it up to, you know, maybe back off the threat for some reason, maybe there's, you know, what do you call it, threat swapping and stuff like that. Or they're giving up the threat to somebody else, take over the tanking role in any given stance or position. Because, you know, like in EQ, which I didn't really mention, there's not like, you can't be like taunt and then you have full threat. You can't like hop the threat meters so much. Some of the Dire Lord's abilities might let you do that, but for the most part, dancing around with threat is a little bit different. It's going to be a little bit different in Pantheon Rise of the Fallen than what most tanks are used to. So that's pretty dynamic and exciting. However, let's move on to the next one. Let's keep this rolling. All right, so this next one's from Lady Benbow. Lady Benbow is saying, debudded, cutting off someone's ass. Debuted, a new launch or reveal, pronounced debuted. So for some reason, again, I was super tired, and what I tend to do is the way I pronounce words. It's like a thing I have. It's I got some issues. But yeah, it really gets highlighted when I get tired. Yeah, I can throw out what my issues are, but you know, I'm not going to. Why even do that? Unless you really want to know. And really, they're just these fake veils to hide behind our weaknesses. We're really just, you know, you have your weaknesses and your strengths. One of mine is not saying the word debuted. I like to say debudded. Or maybe I just wanted some warrior booty mixed in with some Dire Lord booty and maybe a little Paladin booty. You know, I don't know. But yeah, I said it like 18 times, debudded. So maybe I actually was just really into butts last week. But yeah, it was definitely a debut, which is a new launch or reveal of a product. You know, no big deal. So hey, thanks Lady Benbow for that correction. Or was it a correction? You know, we'll never know. At least you'll never know. I know in my head though, it was definitely a correction. Yeah, it was definitely meaning to say debut. So yeah, let's move on, guys. And thank you, Lady Benbow. All right, next up we have a comment from Lego the Hut. We kind of went back and forth a little bit with a little dialogue, but this is about the Constitution. So in the last week's video, I threw some, you know, hesitance or hesitation when I spoke on Constitution. I wasn't really sure if it was hit points, stamina, whatever. So basically, Lego the Hut said, also, we do know stamina is a stat for increased hit points, not Constitution. Constitution increased ability usage from my understanding. Joppa describes very briefly in Jim Lee's stream when Jim is on the character creation screen. I didn't go back to look at it, but I think that's how it was. So I looked back and didn't see a whole lot on Constitution. It is a stat, you know, like strength, stam, Constitution. It is a stat in the character, you know, UI pane, so we'll have a purpose there. We do know right now that it definitely affects the Paladin. The Paladins will also gain an amount of wrath based on their Constitution every time their group slays an enemy. So, you know, is that it? Probably not. I mean, every class has Constitution, so it's going to affect them in some way. What I did do was went ahead and Googled Constitution, which, you know, is pretty cool, because I was like, you know, is that cool that I Googled Constitution? Probably no. But I Googled Constitution because I was like, how could this really play against like a character stat? Because it's not, I mean, sometimes you have Constitution, but not in this regard. Maybe not, maybe so. I'm pretty sure it's probably been in plenty of games, but I can't like off the top of my head be like, oh yeah, Constitution was in that game. But it's a person's physical state with regard to vitality, health, and strength. It's a person's mental or psychological makeup. Basically, what you could say is he had the Constitution of an ox, or he had the Constitution of a moth. You know, whatever. That would be a way you could use it in a sentence. So that kind of makes sense that it would be a stat. And if you, lowered your Constitution, that would, affect the person's psychological makeup or mental state, or it would affect their vitality, health, strength. We'll have to see. Let's see how that plays out. For right now, we know that Constitution gives Paladins wrath when their friends or their party slay a creature. So that's what I got on Constitution. More to come. More to come, my ladies and gentlemen. So let's move on. Next up, we have a comment from Coach T. Coach T is saying, in the reveal sample, it seems like all tanks have at least one ability to rush to the aid of another party member. P, Miraculous Shimmer, Paladin, Miraculous Shimmer, Warrior, War Hero, Dire Lord, Essence Thief. And the Dire Lord also can mitigate the damage of others by not even moving by using Dire Mark. Totally agree. So what we did notice is, especially with the resource management and stuff like that, is there's a lot of tanks are very similar, but they're a little bit different. This is where I kind of wanted to go into the meat and potatoes of this video, at least to round out the tanks. So there is a lot of similarities across these tanks as far as the resource management goes. They play completely different, but at least they look like they play completely different. But the thing that kind of keeps going around right now is people are saying on paper the warrior looks the best, and you know, I just, especially, yeah, on paper warriors might look the best, but basically, yeah, if you guys don't know, everybody's like, the warrior's gonna be the main tank, the Dire Lord, you know what, maybe they're not talking like that, the Dire Lord is going to you know, tank the magical guys, the Paladin's gonna be right in the middle. And I just don't know if that's really gonna be the case. I think there's a lot of influence coming from previous tiles, especially EverQuest, in the sense that we feel like these tanks are, I know, maybe on paper they look one way, but the way they're going to play out, I think Joppa is really going to do his best to design these tanks to be able to do any job equally and not necessarily be wanted more than other tanks in a group of situations. So you could say in almost any game that there's a perfect tank for the boss, you know, and it never, or not EverQuest. In Pantheon Rise of the Fallen, you know, that's probably going to be the tank, you know, I mean, excuse me, probably going to be the case. So there's going to be a boss out there, and hey, Dire Lord, we need a Dire Lord for this one because it makes this mechanic so much easier to deal with. That's just unavoidable. You know, the Warrior's better for this one, the Paladin's better for that one. But, you know, it doesn't mean it's not impossible to do it with the other tanks, or even that bad to deal with. Maybe somebody else will have to deal with the responsibility of the negation that those tanks would bring to that encounter. Like the Warrior can break down a wall, the Dire Lord completely can, you know, like negate a magical attack potentially and just eat through it, and the Paladin can do this crazy AoE healing to buffer some type of, you know, suppression put out across the raid. You know, there's all sorts of different things, and then other classes can fill in these gaps to make it doable. Now, that's just my take. I feel like there's a lot of old rusty thoughts up there in our little craniums that's kind of affecting the way that we look at these class reveals and how it might play out. Now there is a lot of, you know, steam out there going like, yeah, Dire Lord's sweet, man, I'm gonna play Dire Lord, and likely Dire Lords be played to the moon. Warriors are probably played probably the least, and then Paladins probably somewhere in the middle. That's just my guess. You know, does it even matter that that's the case? Not really. It doesn't really matter. If you're planning on playing these classes, you know, if you're excelling in any manner, that'd be great. Especially a Dire Lord, I think that would be the hardest tank to play as far as excelling in very challenging content, not because they're underpowered, but because of their skill floor, mostly, skill ceilings aside. So I took a little snippet from the frequently asked questions, and this is something Joppa was putting out there, and it's basically saying, that said, because we feel it's important that classes fulfill distinct roles, creating interdependence is vital to fulfill social and cooperative experiences. If everyone is the same, this simply cannot be achieved. So basically you can't make the tanks the same, or you can't bring power or the same power to each tank class. Likewise, if every class is absolutely unique, grouping can become overly complicated, and in some cases, certain classes could be less desirable to have in groups than others. So what does that tell you? That's one of his, like, kind of frequently asked questions / tenet of his development of these characters, is that it's really, he does not want one to be less desirable than over the other. And looking at the tanks, and then, you know, Chris's responses to some of the comments on the tanks, like, well, you have no idea what heavy mail's like, and that's what Dire Lords were. Everybody else like, hey, these guys were plate and stuff like that. And then on top of that, if you look on paper, the warrior gets a 20% boost to armor class and full plate and shield and all this, and then resilience on top of that. It's, I mean, it's not, maybe it's a compensation, or maybe he is just that strong and OP as far as taking damage. But the one thing that's different there is the warrior has builders. He doesn't get resilience for getting hit. So the Dire Lord and Paladin, I think maybe people are just brushing over this, I don't really know, but the Dire Lord and Paladin gain wrath or essence if they get hit or they take damage. Furthermore, you know, there's other ways to get it as well. They have builders. You know, somebody, you know, kills somebody in the Paladin group, they get wrath, and then the Dire Lord can like suck essence, and then they can go to one of their bonus stances, for the blood stances, to get more essence. But they're going to get much more resource to burn their heavy hitting or more powerful abilities, where the warrior just is not going to. He's going to build up those shields, battle points, and spend those. So we don't know, you know, maybe one's going to be more faster pace, and then that's the way they're going to deal with this, and the warrior's more like steady and true, building up this resilience. Granted, yeah, they can get heals, which boosts their resilience, but I'm kind of just, grazing over this here. Really, my only point is that these tanks are likely going to be devilishly close in ability to tank, because this is the year, what now, 2018, and let's not kid ourselves, they're making a modern MMO that has concepts from EverQuest and old school MMOs, but it would make no sense. So one of the terrible things about EQ, and this is not like corpse runs or travel times, or we look at those as terrible things. I think those are great things, because if you put something terrible into a game, you would then need to have the opposite side of the spectrum of what that would, what kind of awesome thing that would bring to the game, or, kind of like situations that would create in the game to make it great to have that in the game. There's no way, or there's no reason for a class imbalance to be in a game, and there's no positives to that at any level. Like back in EQ, Rangers were pooped on. Nobody liked a Ranger. Hey man, nobody liked Rangers. And yeah, why would you want to raid? No, you wouldn't. There'd be no reason. Maybe for tracking, which druids can do, and maybe like one Ranger out of 40 people in raids, there would be one. That'd be useful. I mean, plenty of people played Rangers and they were friends and stuff like that, and they'd bring Rangers to the raid. But but there's really not a heavy reason to throw that kind of imbalance into Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. Now you will have imbalance in the sense between roles, like CCers will be super wanted in a group and yay, we want this guy. But if there's an option of 3 tanks, yes. If there's an option between a bard and an enchanter, sure. They're going to be competitive. If there's an option between the DPS, they should all be competitive as far as doing their job. Now they have certain roles, and that's a different area of concern, I think. Like as far as the warrior being able to smash through walls, the rogue being able to throw down ropes, where their class is unique and can change how you have to navigate the environment or deal with certain obstacles and stuff like that. But I really don't think these classes, the tanks, at least inside their roles, so the tanking role, DPS role, crowd control role, healing role, will be in balance to the point where there's just one supreme tank, there's one supreme healer, DPS, etc. I think that's just my opinion, especially after hearing Joppa and him kind of pounding this into our brains, like, hey, he hates MMOs and these all got dumped because they got all homogenized, basically, like all the classes could do everything. And then back in the day, all the classes were really good at what they did, or they sucked and nobody wanted them. So it was really one way or the other. I think he wants to make a game where it's as close as possible, and that balance will always be, it's not to say you can make perfect, competitive classes. You'll always be working on that to improve it. It's a never-ending cycle, and I think he understands that, personally. But hey, that's all I wanted to cover, guys, and that's really the responses I had from you guys last week. I need to keep this video a little shorter, so, but hey, that's really it. I think the classes, especially the tanks, will be super competitive in any encounter, especially on the player. Not to say that this guy over here might really be terrible at a tank, and this guy might be really great, to the point where, Dire Lords could be the worst tank in this situation, Warriors could be the best, and the Dire Lord does it so much better. And I think that is what's awesome about games like this, and about classes in general, when the player can really make that tank excel. And I think, at least I get a feeling that's where this is going. So yeah, that's it, guys. That's it. That's my little 2 cents, and I just want to put that out there. All right, guys, and that's gonna be that. Again, I'm out of town this week, so this video is coming out early, and I can't catch a break in real life, like seriously. Hopefully, I can keep these pumping out every Monday. I might switch to Tuesday to make it easier. Next week, if I switch to Tuesday, maybe Tuesday would be better. I don't know. Also, as far as this video goes and the tanks and stuff like that, I feel like it keeps coming up that this game is a game that's pulled from the roots of old school MMOs. Tell me in a world where it made sense, where the developers would look back to those designs and those concepts and try to, freshen them up and make them newer for today's modern age, and then take the absolute worst things that had no benefits at all, like absolute worst, no benefits, the zero, no way good thing from those games, and bring it into Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. It just makes no sense to me at all. But hey, whatever. Let's just keep moving this forward. And hey guys, let's keep moving it forward. So if you enjoyed what you watched, consider liking and subscribing to get notifications for future uploads I do. You also have to click that bell. I'm super noob to YouTube. I just make videos and upload them and don't know anything about what I'm doing. If you guys have any comments for me, please leave them in the comments below. I love you guys' comments. Last week was tons of comments, especially in the corrections. That was really, that was actually really helpful. It helps me out and helps everybody else out because I'm like, yeah, and then Paladins can wield Dire Lords while their warriors are on their boots because the warriors are boots and Dire Lords are weapons. There's only Paladins. Definitely shoot corrections to me. I love them. I love me some corrections. With that, guys, hey, thanks for watching, and I'll see you again really soon.